Hello and welcome to Wednesday's ESPN FC Live. Mark Donaldson delighted to be joined by Ali Moreno and Rob Dawson. Later on, we will speak to Alex Kirkland in Madrid. A few players signing new deals to stay and extend their deals at the Bernabeu. That's all still to come. We'll look back on last night's historic win for Argentina and the first time Brazil has ever lost a World Cup qualifier at home. We will start in just a second with Jim Ratcliffe and the latest with his investment in Manchester United. However, there may still be 12 games to go in CONMEBOL's World Cup qualifying, but he's wearing his Vino Tinto again. He's got the long-sleeved shirt on. It was a come-from-behind point against Peru. So 6 games gone, and that point could be the one that secures Venezuela's place at the World Cup in 2026, Ali.
Another way to look at it is that we are a third of the way there. And Venezuela, as I reminded everybody last week, they're still ahead of Brazil. And let me just tell you, we stay ahead of Brazil, we're going to the World Cup. This is how it works. And so excited, but also cautious. Just one game at a time, people. Let's not get crazy. And as for the jersey, per the request of producer Sam, he wanted me to change the jersey, so I did change the jersey. It's a different version. This is a long sleeve version. We're in the winter time now, so I'm going for the colder weather jersey.
Okay, big question for Rob. Short sleeve or long sleeve for you?
I'm in Manchester, so when it gets cold, it gets cold.
Yeah,
But very brave to be playing in short sleeves in Manchester in December. I'm going to have to say long sleeve, but no gloves.
No gloves. Yeah. By the way, short sleeves and gloves. What is that all about? Don't give me this. Oh, it's extremities nonsense. Anyway, let's move on from Manchester, Greater Manchester, Stockport flying at the top of League Two. And, well, we're moving to Old Trafford. And I want to get the update from Rob. We thought by this stage that the investment, the 25% stake in Manchester United going to Jim Ratcliffe would have been finalised, but not yet. It's done, but not announced. Is that where we are?
Yeah, pretty much. We were told that it would probably be announced over the international break. Obviously, it's a break in Premier League fixtures, so it's an ideal time to kind of announce that sort of thing. Ineos, certainly, and Jim Ratcliffe were pushing for an announcement during the international break. That probably won't happen now, particularly because it's with Thanksgiving in the US on Thursday. There's going to be a little break with activity over there. So we're looking more likely now at next week. Obviously, it is a little bit more complicated next week in that, the games are back and United are in the Champions League. They're away at Galatasaray, so the timing would have to fit in with that. They don't want this to be a huge distraction, but we're certainly looking now at next week for an announcement.
Ali, if you're paying around 1.3 billion for a 25% stake in a company, you can look at it two ways. One, you've got a quarter of the company, and two, you don't own 3/4 of the company. What do you think Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos would be looking for this investment when it comes to the say that they will have in the running of the football club?
I believe is a foot in the door, a very big foot in the door, but a foot in the door nonetheless. And I imagine, and I don't know this, I don't have inside information, but imagine that is the start of what may be next, of what may be to come, and a potential full transition in the future. How that works out, I'm not quite certain, but it feels like if you're going to make this sort of investment, because you feel a connection to the project, you feel a connection to the excitement of what this may bring to you as a company and what it may bring to the club and the fans as a whole. And quite frankly, I think for the fans, what this is perhaps a sign that the change is coming, and it's a positive sign, and perhaps a reason to hope and to believe that indeed there are better times ahead for Manchester United, and that whatever the involvement is of Jim Ratcliffe, that at the very least you're seeing a perspective that gives you hope and gives you reasons to think we are heading in the right direction. Now, we don't know that for certain. Like I said, this is just perception from the fans in that they're looking for a change. Here's a change. It's not a major change per se, because as you just said, 3/4 of the club are owned by somebody else, but at the very least, it's a foot in the door and perhaps a sign for things to come in the future.
Rob, we've spoken a lot about this. Let's try and take it forward a little bit. To get a majority stake in Manchester United, with 25%, you would need another 26%. to take you over the 50% barrier. Yes, it's something I'm sure Jim Ratcliffe will find easier to do when he's in. But if he is successful, which they're hoping he is with Manchester United, and they're successful, what we got right now, $33 per share. So it would cost him more to get to where he needs to be. Is there a kind of short, medium, long-term aim for Ratcliffe to get more stakeholding in the football club, and eventually Manchester United can say farewell to the Glazers?
That's certainly the plan. Ali's right in that Jim Ratcliffe has got a foot in the door, and there's a difference between the bid that he put together as opposed to the one that the Qatari consortium put together. The Qatari consortium wanted to buy 100% of the club. They designed their bid to win over the fans, and it did. But Ratcliffe was quite clever in that his bid was designed to win over the Glazers, and ultimately it's a Glazers' opinion that matters, and that's why we've got a situation where it'll be Jim Ratcliffe coming in with his 25% stake, and the Qataris are nowhere to be seen. Jim Ratcliffe will hope that in the future this leads to him becoming the majority owner. But again, it goes back to that same question. Do the Glazers want to give up their control? United fans will know that a year ago today, they released that statement during the World Cup to say that they would look at alternatives, and that could be investment or it could be a full sale. Now, the fans all saw those two words, full sale, and thought, the Glazers are gone. This is fantastic. This is exactly what we've been hoping for. I doubt very much, knowing what I do now, that the Glazers ever really intended to sell. And that's why we're in a situation a year on with Jim Ratcliffe coming in as very much a minority stakeholder. Again, Jim Ratcliffe will hope that further down the line that he will become the majority owner. There's no timeline for that, though. So at the moment, it's all in the Glazers' hands. And you're right in what you say, that at the moment, the deal that Ratcliffe's agreed for the 25% stake is around about $33 a share. If Ratcliffe comes in and is successful, and United is successful, and he invests in the stadium, and that becomes a world-class facility again, the squad become a squad that are winning Premier League titles and the Champions League again, then obviously the value of the club goes up. And that means that the price he has to pay for the next little bit goes up. So do the Glazers want to sell at that point? Well, again, we've nothing to suggest in the last year that they want to give up that control. So, it's all very well Ratcliffe saying that this is the first step to him owning everything. We don't know that. The Glazers are still in control. You said during that answer, if I knew then what I know now. What do you know now that you didn't know 12 months ago? Well, we were surprised when the statement came a year ago. We were all at the World Cup. We were in Qatar. We were very surprised that the statement came. Again, though, because we've never seen anything like that with the Glazers in 18 years of ownership. So everyone latched onto those two words, that full sale, and the fans did it. I think journalists did, the media did. They thought for the first time in nearly 20 years that the Glazers were talking about selling the club. Why else would you include those words in a statement if you weren't thinking of selling? Well, it became apparent quite quickly that that's not what this was about. It was about finding minority investment. They have had a very, very good offer for a full takeover on the table from the Qatari consortium, an offer of around about $5 billion, which is way over market value for Manchester United. I think it's valued around about $3 billion on the stock, according to their share price. So that tells you the markup that the Qataris were willing to pay, and they've not accepted it. The offer they've accepted is for a 25% investment, and I don't think that the Glazers ever really intended to sell. I think this was all about seeing what people valued United at, finding that minority investment, and somehow finding the money to continue as majority owners. And right now, that's exactly what they've done. Quotes from Sir Alex Ferguson about this topic over the last 24 hours. He said, "I know Jim well. We shall have to see what he does, but I am optimistic." We're going to get Ali's take in a second on Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe's other sporting interests that he's had, but he does have a controlling stake in Nice in Ligue 1 in France. And our very own Julien Laurent, with a recorded piece from ESPN FC, explains how his investment has been in France and what he's done.
Sir Jim Ratcliffe bought Nice in the summer 2019, and since then it's been a very interesting tenure for him. Not much success on the pitch, although when he arrived he said that within 3 years he wanted to compete for the Liga title with PSG. Not quite yet. They finished 6th, they finished 9th, they finished 5th, and they finished 9th again in the 4 full seasons that he's been in charge. He spent a lot of money, 260 million euros to buy loads of players, 50 since he took over. A lot of them also left the club, not bringing as much money, of course, but the investment has been there, even for the training ground, which has been refurbished and modernized. So there was a willingness to do well, clearly, with some big ambition. The problem maybe lays where in the manager, in the sense that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and some of the calls that he made in terms of manager were maybe not good enough. Patrick Vieira lasted 18 months. He's the longest manager under Sir Jim Ratcliffe at Nice before he was sacked. Lucien Favre was just 6 months. You had interim managers, Digard, Ursea, who didn't last long either. Christophe Galtier was only here for 1 year. He left to go to PSG, but he would have been let go anywhere because of some tensions within the club. And now we've got Francesco Farioli, who's doing an amazing job, has only been really at the club since the summer. He made some mistakes, of course, like appointing his own brother, Bob, as the Nice CEO, only for 2 years because he was clearly not good enough for it. Then Sir Dave Brailsford, the former Sky cycling guru, was also heavily involved at Nice. Not really for the best, because under him they made their worst signings since Sir Jim Ratcliffe took over the club. So some positives, some negatives as well, and I think we get an idea already of what we can expect from Ratcliffe at United. Investment, money spent on the training ground, on the stadium, Old Trafford, the Carrington, for sure. On the squad, for sure. He lacks a squad overhaul, but really himself, I don't think we'll see him being involved a lot. He will delegate massively, which is also what he does in his professional life.
Interesting stuff there from Jules. Look, he's a very successful businessman with Ineos, the CEO there, but 1 or 2 decisions with some of the sporting interests that he's had. Jules mentioned Sky Cycling, the All Blacks. We've also had the America's Cup. He's been involved in Lausanne. As far as going forward is concerned, Ali, what can he change quickly, and what does he need to change most once he gets his foot in the door?
I'll tell you what's interesting. And hearing Jules talk, the more he kept talking, the more I felt like, wait a second, is he talking about Nice or is he talking about Manchester United currently? That's what it felt like. Yeah, a lot of money thrown at the problem, but a lot of money thrown at the wrong players, at the wrong managers, and decisions that kind of keep repeating themselves and mistakes that keep repeating themselves. Isn't that the issue currently at Manchester United, and has been the issue for Manchester United for the last few years? That is something that needs to be different, and that needs to change. And so as Jim Ratcliffe comes in, what's critical and has to be critical from here on out is who's making the player personnel decisions. And indeed, what is the infrastructure of this club in terms of decision making? Where is the identification of talent, and what are the objectives that need to happen on the field, and who are the players that indeed can take you to those objectives? That plan has to be clear, and those that are making those decisions have to be people that cannot get it wrong. They're to the point now, Manchester United, now with this new influx of money, they cannot get it wrong. They have to get these decisions right. And the first decision that needs to be made, I believe, is an infrastructure of the club and the decision-making infrastructure of the organization as a whole. Once they do that, then you can start identifying talent, you can start identifying players, go after the players, and then you can throw money at the issue, but not just throw money at it and see what sticks. There has to be an organized plan in order to be able to have Manchester United not only be successful in the short term, but in the long term as well.
We'll wrap up this topic shortly. Rob, what does 25% of Manchester United buy you when it comes to a say in recruitment, which over the past few years has not been good enough at Old Trafford?
Well, and that's the interesting thing about this whole deal, that 25% of a company would usually get you nothing. It would usually essentially mean that you're a silent partner. The deal that we think that Ratcliffe has negotiated is to have quite a big say over the football side of the business. So that would be anything from player recruitment to who the manager is, to the infrastructure that Ali's just mentioned there, that the way that players are bought and sold. And really that's what fans will look to him to have an impact on, because really Man United's recruitment over the last 10 years has been absolutely appalling. They've fallen well behind the top clubs in Europe. They've spent a similar amount of money over the last 10 years to City, but have had nothing like their success. The problem that most Man United fans will have with this is that when Ratcliffe's come in, he's brought in Dave Brailsford, who Jules mentioned in his piece. He transformed British cycling, but he is, as director of sport at Ineos, hasn't had a great deal of success outside of cycling. So is he the right guy to come in and start making these decisions about who helps United recruit players? Ultimately, the proof will be in the pudding with that. If he signs the right players, if he gets those processes working, United will be stronger on the field. If they don't, they could be in the same position that we're talking about now, just a poor squad who aren't equipped to win the Premier League title or the Champions League. The other interesting point in all this is Erik ten Hag. He has got a lot of credit in the bank with Man United fans and apparently with Ratcliffe for what he did at Man United last season. But often we find that when new owners come in making these decisions, they often want their own man in the job. And you only have to look at Chelsea to see that happening, that you have Thomas Tuchel, who was very, very successful at Chelsea, won the Champions League when probably he shouldn't have. But Todd Bowley comes in and immediately there are tensions there. In the first summer and eventually 3 months down the line, Thomas Tuchel gets sacked. Now, no one at Man United wants Erik ten Hag sacked, and Ratcliffe at the moment certainly doesn't. But what will be key when Ratcliffe comes in and Dave Brailsford comes in is a working relationship between those people, because Erik ten Hag has been used over the last 18 months to having a lot of power over recruitment, a lot of power at Old Trafford. Basically, he gets to do whatever he wants. If you've got another guy coming in saying, well, actually, we don't want you doing that, immediately then there's tension. So very, very quickly, Ratcliffe, Brailsford, Erik ten Hag, whoever comes in as sporting director, needs to find a really, really smooth working relationship as quickly as possible. That is going to be the key to almost everything in the short term for Ineos with Ratcliffe and Man United.
Just finally, you have written, or you're nearly finished, a piece about all this, which will drop once it's made public that Ratcliffe has got his 25% stake in the club. Just the brief bullet points. What's in your article for people that can look forward to reading it on ESPN.com?
Well, really, it's just what can you expect? For Man United fans, it's what can you expect when Ratcliffe finally gets this deal over the line? What will Man United look like? What's in Ratcliffe's in tray? What are the first things he needs to do? And what the future may look like. I mean, that's a key question that all Man United fans have got right now. What is the future going to look like?
Speaking of the future, let's talk Real Madrid and say goodbye to Rob Dawson and thank you. We will speak to him shortly and we will welcome in Alex Kirkland from Madrid, who's braving the not quite sub-zero temperatures, but it's dropped 10 degrees or so. You poor little thing. How are you coping? It's still in the 60s or something.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Temperatures have dropped a few degrees over the last couple of days, as you say, but it's still sunny most days, so that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's right. I got a long sleeve jersey for you. It'll fit quite nicely.
Ali's come prepared. Ali has come prepared. We're going to talk Real Madrid. I want to start with you, Ali. And we've seen a few deals being done as far as contract extensions to some very talented youngsters at Real Madrid. They're getting their work done nice and early and ensuring they don't have any sweaty palms when it comes to the final year of some of their stars' contracts. What have you made of the recent business that they've done, Ali?
It's necessary business for Real Madrid. We have seen the transition of Real Madrid happening over the last 18 months right in front of our eyes. We have seen the end of Casemiro, Kroos, Modric. That has happened right in front of our eyes, and then other players have taken those positions. And it's interesting, last week we were talking about where is Luka Modric going to go? What happens with Toni Kroos? Well, I think we have an answer now. What we know is that Real Madrid's future lies with Fede Valverde, lies with Camavinga. And as to what happens in the attacking side, yes, it's going to be Bellingham, as we know. But of course, Vinny Jr. and Rodrygo. And now Real Madrid, you understand what the future of the club looks like. And the other pieces that you may add to that, well, that'd be great. But you have a core group of players that is now available to you on the long term. And it tells you that Real Madrid knows very well that they have to jump ahead of the curve, because if these players that we just mentioned, if they hit the market, then they're all long gone. It's going to be very difficult to keep because Real Madrid is going to be competing with money out there that perhaps they don't want to spend. So guess what? Let's jump ahead of the curve. Let's secure these deals. Let's not allow these players to hit the market, or at the very least think about hitting the market. And so therefore, we know what we're going to be for the next 5 to 10 years.
It's basically smart business as far as the evolution of the football club is concerned, Alex, isn't it?
Yeah, this has been Madrid's strategy really over the last few years. They've had to be smarter. I think there was a realization a few years ago that they couldn't necessarily compete with the biggest spenders in European football, the likes of PSG or of Manchester City, which is a strange position for Real Madrid, money bags, Real Madrid traditionally to be in. So there was a realization, I think they had to be a little bit cleverer. They had to go and get some of these players earlier in their development before they became established stars. That's what they did when they went and got Vinicius and Rodrygo as teenagers from Brazil. They were sort of big gambles at the time, spending 45 million euros on each of them as unproven teenagers. They've been proven to be good decisions. Everyone knows that Camavinga was a bargain when they got him for 30 million euros. Certainly Fede Valverde was when they got him for just 5 million euros. So this has been smart, I think, from Real Madrid. I think what's been interesting as well is the way that they've kind of choreographed the announcements of these contract renewals. There's definitely been a sort of a theatricality about it, one after the other, in the space of a couple of weeks. Vinicius, then Rodrygo, then Camavinga, then Valverde. It's making a statement, I think. I think it is saying, look, we've got these young players who are the future. They're the future of this club, and they want to be here.
Let's go through the players individually, Ali, and talk about what their future could be at Real Madrid. Why don't we start? Kind of combine the two with Vinny Jr. and Rodrygo. We've got Endrick coming in over the next 12 months, the Brazilian teenager. Potentially a new striker. That might be Benzema. Bellingham's the kind of golden child. So you've got Vinny Jr., who plays a lot wide left. You've got Rodrygo, who plays a lot wide right. Where do they fit in when everything is kind of said and done and they've got who they want and then they have to decide who plays?
Well, if it plays out the way that you just laid it out, they play right there. That's what they do in those very positions that you just mentioned. Now, the Endrick situation is in the same mold that Alex was talking about with Vinny Jr. and Rodrygo, that you indeed are taking a calculated gamble on a player, you're investing that money and you're saying, this guy is going to be important to us. But that's talking about potential, not quite the reality just yet in terms of what he can be for Real Madrid. We don't know that. We expect him to be a big player, but we don't know that for sure. So let's talk about what we do know. What we do know is that Vinny Jr. and Rodrygo both were sort of fighting Carlo Ancelotti on the idea of playing more central roles. And Carlo Ancelotti essentially said, hey, yo, relax. Okay, you two, you're going to play here and you're going to be productive in this position. Can you trust me on this? Can you trust that I've been around this game and I have perspective and I know that you guys are going to be successful in these positions? And reluctantly, both Vinny Jr. and Rodrygo, after they have complained about this, they have continued to play in central position. And what has happened? Now they're scoring goals. Imagine that. Oh, what a miracle that Vinny Jr. and Rodrygo were going to score goals. And Bellingham supporting from behind. So instead of fighting Ancelotti, if indeed both Rodrygo and Vinny buy into this idea and understand that it doesn't have to be a situation in which, well, Bellingham now is the big guy, so now I'm not scoring my goals. So now what am I going to do if I'm Vinny Jr.? No, how about you take advantage of the fact that you have a guy like Bellingham on the field and that he is going to attract attention. And guess what that's going to do? That's going to leave you isolated in 1v1 situations. And sometimes it's actually going to leave you free. And Vinny, free, final third. Yes, give me some of that. If I were him, I would enjoy the position. The fact that now outside backs and center backs have to make a decision. Who tucks inside, who goes to the outside. And in that fraction of a second in which they don't know what to do, Vinny can take advantage and be free going towards goal. So if he just processes, and Rodrygo as well, processes this information as, you know what, the presence of Bellingham does not hurt me. It actually helps me and enhances my game. Both of them are going to be really successful in that layout that you just mentioned.
Before we move on to Camavinga, something you said in that last answer, Carlo Ancelotti would say to Rodrygo and Vinny, yo. Now, he's 64 years old, Ancelotti. At which stage is it acceptable to say yo to the youngsters? And at which stage is it time to just utilize better language, Ali?
See, this is managing 101, Mark. You have to be able to communicate with your player.
Okay.
You don't stay around in this game for as long as Ancelotti has if he's not able to actually communicate with the players. And sometimes you got to drop a yo,
Okay.
Vini, yo, Rodrygo, come on, man. Huh?
Okay.
You got to be able to communicate. Now, this is not the language that he's using, of course, but he has to be able to get that message across. And to his credit, apparently, these players listen to him. Whatever Ancelotti does, these players, they seem to be able to execute it. It doesn't have to be yelled. It doesn't have to be screamed. It just has to be communicated correctly to a specific player. And this, from what we have seen, has happened with both Vini Jr. and Rodrygo.
Okay, stop, collaborate and listen. Alex is back with a brand new transition to Camavinga. Where does he fit in? Central midfield, left back, squad player, first name on the team sheet in that central area. What do you reckon, Alex?
Yeah, I think Camavinga, much like the other three players we're talking about here, nobody doubts his quality. Everyone recognises he's a top talent, a top player. The only question is what you say, exactly where does he fit into this Real Madrid team? Now, if you ask Carlo Ancelotti, Ancelotti says he's a pivot. He's a holding midfielder. And that's interesting because I think a lot of other people who watch Camavinga think, well, does he have the necessary discipline to play that role? And if you ask him to play that role, are you kind of affecting what makes him such an exciting player, which is his kind of energy and his sort of non-stop engine and ability to get up and down the pitch? Shouldn't he be more of one of the other kind of two midfielders in a midfield three rather than the pivot? And the other issue is that he doesn't like playing at left back, but he's brilliant at left back. Every time he plays there, he does really, really well. He's actually more convincing often, I think, than either Mondi or Fran Garcia this season. And in certain games, Ancelotti has picked Camavinga at left back, partly to squeeze an extra midfielder into the team, and partly because he knows he's really, really good there. But he doesn't like it. Camavinga, every chance he gets, says that isn't my long-term future. So let's see. I mean, Ancelotti knows what he's talking about. Who am I to question him? He says he's going to end up as a pivot. I guess we should go along with Carlo. And by the way, on his Ancelotti's ability to communicate with the youngsters, don't forget that famous photo after the Champions League final of him, sunglasses on, cigar in mouth, celebrating with Vini and Rodrygo and Militao and the rest. Uncle Carlo has no problem hanging with the kids, I think is fair to say.
Fede Valverde, the last one who signed a new contract. Ali, I'll give you a blank sheet of paper and say, Valverde is the first name on your team sheet. You choose where he plays. Where are you putting him?
I don't even think Fede Valverde knows that answer himself. Plays a different role for Uruguay than he does for Real Madrid. I think, honestly, he's a coach's dream. And I imagine that Carlo Ancelotti would agree with that he gives you the flexibility to cover so much space given that long stride that he has and the power with which he runs and how much he's able to cover offensively as well as defensively. He has passing range as well. He can hit a shot from distance. There's a lot to like about Fede Valverde. And so I think the reason as to why he's not given sort of a central position here, you're going to sit in front of the back four or you're going to play ahead of that holding midfielder, is because in some ways that limits that physicality and that ability to run and cover spaces and the freedom to run, which I think is what Fede Valverde likes to do. He just wants to run. He just wants to get out in open field and run with the ball, run without the ball. That's why you see him playing more on the right-hand side. And I think perhaps that's potentially where his best position is. And I think that's where Ancelotti has him, in that he has the freedom there to run and he has space to go with the ball, but he also has the responsibility defensively. That I think Fede Valverde gravitates towards that responsibility defensively as well, making a challenge, making a tackle, running with the ball out of the back so that they can create some transitional opportunities. He is, again, a coach's dream because he gives you flexibility, but his best position is probably on the inside right of midfield with the freedom to get out in wider areas.
So good work being done by Real Madrid. Just before we say goodbye to Alex Kirkland, 6:30 local time in Madrid. You've been on with us for 10 minutes. You've had Vanilla Ice lyrics. You've had Carlo dropping the yo. We just need one more and we're on our way to a full house on Real Madrid bingo today. Alex, you lucky boy.
I know, just.
Thank you to Alex. We will talk
Thanks,
Brazil and Argentina next. And Argentina winning in Brazil at a World Cup qualifier for the first time ever. It's the first time any team has beaten Brazil on Brazilian soil in a World Cup qualifier. 64-0 they were prior to this one. But a header from Nico Otamendi in the second half gave the Albiceleste the victory. 3 vital points, keeps them at the top of the CONMEBOL table. But there was some unsightly scenes before kickoff. In fact, kickoff was delayed due to some fighting in the stands. And before Ali and I get to the game itself, Lionel Scalone afterwards was asked about the situation and the scenes prior to kickoff.
Bueno, no sé si me sorprendió o no, pero es triste. A ver, sobre todo de cara al mundo, es muy triste que pasen estas cosas. Acá no tiene nada que ver la hinchada ni argentina ni brasileña. Yo lo que hubiera hecho es apartar a la gente de Argentina un poco más arriba, en una tribuna solo, donde no puedan tener contacto con los demás. Y eso no se hizo. El otro día la gente de Uruguay estaba en la tercera bandeja de la cancha de Boca, donde no podía pasar nada. Y confiamos a veces de que las cosas vayan por su cauce normal y a veces no es así, entonces hay que prevenir antes.
It wasn't nice to see, Ali, and you just wondered, eventually there was some segregation with security and police providing a cordon, but there were a lot of Argentina fans there, and you saw Martinez go over, and Messi as well, because the players' families were in that section. Have they not learned anything, the Brazilian authorities? Because we saw it in the Libertadores as well, that kind of thing is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's a major oversight from the Brazilian Federation. Let me just tell you, I don't know about the rest of the world, but this is CONMEBOL 101 when it comes to how to distribute fans in the stadium. It is automatic that the visiting fans will be put in an area that is far away from everybody else, not behind the goal in a lower bowl right in the middle of all Brazilian fans. That's just asking for trouble. That is what's already a tense environment. Now, let's not forget that both of these teams came into this match after having lost their games. So there was some nervous energy around this match historically because it's Brazil, because it's Argentina, and then nervous energy because of their results. And then, hey, I'll tell you what would be a good idea. Let's intermingle. Let's all have them all together. What's the worst that could potentially happen here? Well, what happens is that fans start singing, and some of these songs tend to go one way or the other, and people don't like it, and eventually you say something, some hand gestures, and here we go, madness ensues. All of that could have been avoided if you just do, as I said, this is CONMEBOL World Cup Qualifier 101 sitting arrangement. This is the first thing that we teach in that class, and that is the visiting fans, they're up there by themselves, separated not only by a security or in fact by empty stands as well, and you essentially create a physical separation so that there is no chance of any of this happening. I can tell you from my own experience and my parents' experience, years ago, we went to Uruguay in a World Cup qualifier at Estadio Centenario, and we won 3-0. Right? It was an excuse to bring the fact that we won 3-0 at Uruguay. But regardless, I digress. 3-0. My dad and my brother were at the stadium. They were not allowed to leave the stadium until everybody else left. And once they were put in the bus that was going to take them directly to the hotel, that bus was protected by essentially horses. And the bus driver at the time said to the Venezuelan fans, look, listen, you won, it's great, good job, but let's not get crazy in the bus, and let's not start yelling at people, because you know what they're going to do? They're going to try to burn the bus down, and this is how I make a living. So this is the sort of emotion and behavior that we're talking about. And if you know that's the sort of attention that matches like this, in whatever the circumstances, they bring upon the game and the players and the stadium and the occasion, then you have to be prepared for it. And it's a basic behavior from any football federation in South America to go and separate the fans. Because guess what? You can trust the fans all you want, but they're not going to behave, right? There are going to be songs that cross the line, and those songs that cross the line are going to get the attention of the one that is right next to them on the in the stands. And back and forth is going to happen. And what's the end result in that? Are they going to shake hands and say, hey, that was a really good song that you just sang there. It was really creative. I really enjoyed it. No. We're not talking about reasonable people here. And so eventually emotions get out of control and the game gets delayed. And we see this behavior that is embarrassing for everybody involved.
It's kind of sad from an Argentina perspective that this is overshadowing what is a historic win. That first half took me back 50 years to the 70s. The dark arts were in force, skullduggery aplenty, and only 3 added minutes at the end of a half that saw more stoppages that probably required 10 minutes. But Argentina were the better side without scoring in the first half. Brazil coming back into it in the second half, but what a time to score the header that Otamendi did. So over the piece, were Argentina deserved winners for you?
Yeah, I think so, because I believe that Argentina were better at acclimating themselves and adjusting themselves to the style of game that was played after the delay. So we just mentioned why the delay happened, and the sort of same kind of behavior that we were seeing in the stands, we kind of saw that translate itself and put itself out on the field. In the first half that you just mentioned, it was really difficult to see a passing sequence that was more than 5-10 passes without somebody getting absolutely destroyed in a 50-50 challenge. Somebody with a 2-footed opportunity, or a sliding challenge, a slap in the face, or a swinging elbow, or a swinging arm. It was all happening in that sort of style. So it became more about a fight than it became about execution and quality on the field. And in that sort of circumstance, I think Argentina have more players that are willing to do that, and that do that naturally. So this game was not about Lionel Messi. This game was not about Gabriel Jesus. This game was not about Julian Alvarez. And this game was not about Rafinha or Rodrygo. No. This game was about Rodrygo de Paul. It was the Rodrygo de Paul special. The whole game took the personality of Rodrygo de Paul. And guess what? He's thriving in that game, whereas Brazil are trying to play a match and a style that this simply do not match who they are. They are not that team, and they're not that group. They try to be that team, and they try to go and challenge and compete and have intensity and energy, which they did. But it limited their ability to actually create opportunities going forward and exploit some of the issues that Argentina may have had and the frailties that may have had in the back line. In particular, Nicolás Otamendi, who struggled against Darwin Núñez with speed. Well, you never saw that sort of matchup with Brazil. And then you allow Otamendi to become the hero, scoring a great header. But I think it goes back to what I just said earlier. This match became the Rodrygo de Paul experience, and in that, Argentina is always going to win, and Brazil is not going to succeed.
If only I could think of someone, maybe an Argentine, who's had an influence on Rodrygo de Paul, maybe someone who might be his boss, maybe at Atletico Madrid. That was Simeone 101 as well, and Argentina come away with the win. One final point. We started with the soundbite from Lionel Scalone, and I want to end with something else that he said. Get your thoughts on this one. During the press conference afterwards, voluntarily, it wasn't even a question that he was asked. He came out with, I'm not sure I can get much better than this. This is history. I've won the World Cup. I've won in Brazil. Simple question to you. Does Scalone manage Argentina at the World Cup in 2026?
I don't think so. It certainly didn't seem like it in that press conference. And as you just mentioned, it's not like somebody actually brought up this point to him. He put it out himself, and he essentially said, look, these players are giving me everything, and they need a manager that can give them everything. And right now the bar seems to be too high and unrealistic in some ways. And it's going to take somebody who comes in and actually has that amount of energy and that the willingness to give the same sort of work that the players are giving me. And I was just kind of like, wait a second. If this is not a concession speech, it certainly feels like it. It certainly feels like it's Copa America and goodbye for Lionel Scaloni. It doesn't feel like this was the speech of somebody who was saying, yeah, 2026, here we go. It's almost as if, let's make it a Copa America, and that's about it, guys. It's going to be great. You do you, I'll do me. It's been great, but I don't think I can carry this forward. The other thing that I think is important here, he's probably seen it himself, like, we depend a lot on Lionel Messi. And he's not getting any younger. And I'm not sure what his plans are for 2026. And I don't know what that transition is going to look like without Lionel Messi. Allow that to be somebody else's problem, not this guy. I'll see you guys until Copa America. And then after that, I'm gone. That's what it sounded like. I'm inferring a lot here, but you read between the lines, and it certainly felt like he was saying, yeah, guys, I think I'm out.
Only 6 points clear of Venezuela in the CONMEBOL standings. The pressure is getting to him. Ali, Vino Tinto, Venezuela cannot lose another World Cup qualifier for 10 months. It's just going to be a nice, peaceful 10 months as you look ahead to the next 12. Yes?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Enjoy. My thanks to Rob, to Alex, to Ali as well, who can now take off his long-sleeved Venezuela jersey. We'll do all this again at ESPN FC Live on Friday as we preview a huge weekend of action in England, in Spain, in Italy, and in France, plus the Bundesliga. We'll do it all again in a couple of days. Bye for now. Happy Thanksgiving.